You know, I got three days in of all the things that I get, yesterday, for instance. I'm so glad. I want to go about this. Yeah, I got to see it. Well, but it's no more. Yeah, well, there's one thing it's hard to and I'm, you know, I think I'm so tired of Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
We'll be starting up the convocation meeting in just a couple minutes. Right. After the move.
Yeah.
All right. Some people think this. All right. Can you hear me? Is that coming through? Doesn't feel like it's very loud. It's okay. Yeah, it might be. All right. I guess. Is it Richard, the MC for this part of the? Robert? All right, please. If I could have your attention, please. Thank you. We're going to be starting the convocation meeting, and Robert Stoller is going to take over. Please welcome Robert.
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, all you hardcore attendees, for populating this wonderful sanctuary for this business meeting. So I have a call to order.
Snack. And someone, I did. I know he did. Yeah, it's hard to leave all those snacks. Okay, maybe people don't know about it.
Well, maybe some of them are closet Unitarians and they just love to talk. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And I'd like to identify our voting members, but I think today everybody can be a voting member in honor of this special day. And I believe we don't have enough people for a quorum, but let's just see how many people are members.
Please raise your hand if you're a member.
I got 9 also.
What's the quorum?
I think a quorum for us would be 20.
9 present, therefore, anything we vote on is not official, but we're going to continue with the meeting.
All right, I would like Helen to read the minutes from the last meeting, please.
Treasurer Jay Kiskell called the meeting to order at 3:25 PM on July 30th, 2022. The attendance satisfied the quorum requirement. Is this not working?
But we have a back, that is mine.
How about that? Is that any better? There we go. Okay, now I can hear myself. All right, I'll start again. Treasurer Jay Kiskell called the meeting to order at 3:25 PM on July 30th, 2022. Attendance was satisfied for the quorum requirement. Secretary Helen Borland read the minutes from the 2021 convocation held at the Northwest UU Congregation in Sandy Springs, Georgia. The minutes were approved. Financial report. Jay reported the Universalist Convocation was in a healthy financial position with $5,800 in the convocation account. The convocation uses Renaissance Bank branch in Alpharetta, Georgia. Nomination for officers: President Robert Stoller, Vice President David Kuntz, Treasurer Jay Kiskell, Secretary Helen Borland. David D'Amico moved to accept these officers. Reverend Will Humphrey seconded. All officers were unanimously elected to their office. The next convocation will be held in Philadelphia at the Unitarian Universalists of Mount Airy congregation in May 2023. This convocation will also coincide with the 200th year anniversary of the society. Is that correct, or is it 220?
It's 200.
200, okay. A request is made for future locations. Currently, there are no other convocation locations on the calendar. No immediate locations were offered for a future convocation. A heartfelt and grateful offer of thanks was extended to the team at Belleville for hosting this year's convocation.
Now that you've heard the minutes from the last meeting, does anybody have any changes or questions about the last year's report? If not, can I have somebody recommend that they be approved? Okay. So we got Richard Trudeau and Fern Coleman. Okay, Fern. Okay. Like to does everybody vote to accept the minutes? Thank you. I now will have a financial report by Jay.
As Helen mentioned, our account is in pretty good shape. Our main expense is our convocation every year, which we hope to be self-sustaining, but if we spend more, honestly, I don't care anymore. I just want these to be successful. As Helen mentioned, we have a little over $5,000 in the bank. We have about $5,800 in the bank last year. This year we have $5,300 in the bank, but that does not include some registrations that came in at the last minute before this report was written. So I think we're about the same position, about $5,800, which is good for us. I still have to pay the expenses for the convocation, but I want to thank this team for being very frugal. And I think we'll do quite well in covering all the expenses without any extraordinary impact on the account. Our membership is $10 a year. And right now we have 60 paid members compared to 67 paid members last year. So we do have a little drop in our membership that we need to address. And our membership is yearly. It expires every month. I mean, every May. Every month. Great. Actually, that's a new plan. So if anyone is interested in membership, please go to our website, Unitarian Universalist Convocation.org, and click on the membership menu item, and you can pay either online or through a paper form. Richard.
Universalist.
What did I say?
You said Unitarian Universalist Convocation.
Universalist Convocation.org. There you go.
Even short.
So I want to add something here. McKinley is not here, so Bruce, I'm going to ask you to stand in for Reverend McKinley Sims. We're going to have to stand in for this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, one second. Yes. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
I'll be curious.
Oh,
I'll have to be full of some kind of ritual.
okay, the convocation would like to donate some money to the fund to get the handicapped access to the food bank.
Oh, wonderful.
So this young man has a check that he needs to get rid of.
So McKinley, we want to present this check to you. We have to do it for the county.
Okay. Of course you do. One more. Got it.
So we'd like to present you this check of $300 off of our Universalist Convocation book program, which hopes that will help both the church and the community in your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And when I put a caption on that picture, I'll have to say, yes, this is a real minister. Get that a lot.
So I'd just like to announce the slate of current officers. So we have President Robert Stolar doing speaking, Vice President Dave Kuntz, he goes to 2025, as do I. Treasurer Jay Kiskell till 2024, and Secretary Helen Borland till 2024. And if anybody else would like to be on the board, please let us know. And we'll be happy to tender your request. Yes.
David did contact me to find out how I was videoing
Mhm.
and said that he had a medical complication keeping him from coming, otherwise he would.
Thank you. And now I'd like to solicit locations for 2024 and 2025 conventions. Anybody has any ideas? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I had spoken to Jay already about a possibility of.
Yes.
I had spoken to Jay about a possibility of having a convocation at a place in Childs, New York, called the Cobblestone Museum. It's a collection of buildings that are cobblestone, and they're all together. I mean, they naturally were put up there. And the main focus of it is a Universalist Church, which was founded there, and it still looks like a church and functions as a church, but it's mostly like a museum meeting place now. And they also have another building on site, which was a former Universalist church, which was written about in the Herald, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So I think it would be a nice place because it's a museum. It's an actual church. There's a lot of things to see while you're there if you like. It's within easy driving distance of places to stay and restaurants and stuff like that, but it is rural, which I think is just altogether very neat. And it is near another Universalist church founded by George Pullman. It's within like a couple of miles of there. And that was going to be, I think, one of our convocation locations a couple of years ago, but the minister moved all of a sudden. So it just seems like a good location. I've spoken to them. I do some volunteering out at that museum as a letterpress printer. So they know me, and it's just a matter of perhaps getting on the calendar and having our people speak to their people and that kind of thing. Just a thought.
David, tell me, what's the name?
Cobblestone Museum Society.
Okay, and what's the name of the city?
Oh, Childs, CHILDS, New York.
Is it how far from like Rochester and Buffalo? Is it between them, I think?
Well, I don't live in Rochester, but it's easy access from Rochester.
Closer to Rochester than Buffalo?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes.
David, who is the editor of the Universalist Herald, should get properly introduced. Thank you, David. We also have another offer from a small church in El Dorado, Ohio, which we want to consider. We try very hard to move the convocation physically around. The convocation serves Unitarians, Universalists from Maine to Florida, east of the Mississippi. So we try to give a range for folks to attend. But we are in a period of reflection this year that we see our membership going down, difficult to recruit officers, and having increasing difficulty securing locations. So we're going to spend this year until 2024 with the discussion of what do we want to do with the convocation. So we will solicit individuals who like to be part of that. And it means the convocation may stop holding yearly gatherings, but move to some other position. We'd like to keep it going. It's been ongoing now for 34 years, and it would be a shame for it to stop, because I think there needs to be a place for Universalists they can call their own. So we have lots of discussions to have over the next year. We have an unknown future right now. And we hope to have folks, especially our membership, participate in that conversation. Anything else, Robert?
Well, that should do it. Although we,
I don't have a microphone, but do you have a listing online of all the locations? I know we've repeated some. Since 1990, there've been a few that you've gone back to, right? But it is online.
If you go to universalistconvocation.org and you go to the sidebar, there'll be a page that has the history of where we held
All of them.
convocations
Okay,
since the beginning.
thank you.
I'd like to open the floor for any discussion or comment.
We were at this point several years ago.
I think I can involve the microphone.
Thank you.
We were at this point several years ago when a previous president of the convocation suggested the same thing, that we shut it down, and it was kind of short of miraculous that people really stood up and wanted to continue. There were a lot more people in attendance at the time in a different location, but it happened, and it could still happen. We just don't know. So I'm on the hopeful side, but that could be a fault that I have.
I was wondering about, as I recall, in Atlanta, there was the use of Zoom to connect with speakers, keynote people, speakers who couldn't make the trip. And we've become quite accustomed to having members attend our services online, attend meetings online. Is that something that you would consider as a way maybe a reduced registration, and then the day before they get the password or the link to join in. Is that something that might increase our members' attendance?
As for me, I dislike Zoom, but I'm an old fuddy-duddy, and a young person like you or him might speak to that better than me.
So yes, we did use Zoom to connect people, actually, Vernon Chandler from Germany into our convocation, and Melvin Kennedy from Vermont. That's part of the conversation we want to have over the next year. I think one of the remaining features that is unique is that we get together and we actually sit and have a meal with one another. And although we could provide information, we just need to think, is that the right way to do when we've built up this custom of being together? I know it sounds a little out of step in the 21st century now, but it's among the things we'd like to consider. Yes.
Anyone else?
Okay, well, I call this meeting over for the 2023 Universalist Convocation here in Mount Airy, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Right, next thing on the program is that we're going to hear from David D'Amico about the Universalist Herald magazine.
Okay, well, there were several people asked me about the Herald, then all of a sudden they're not here, so I see a lot of familiar faces who will already know all about the magazine, but anyway, for those who haven't, and there are several here, the Universalist Herald was started in 1850 in Wetumpka, Alabama. It has since migrated to the north, and I've been editor now for about 11 years, well, right at 11 years. I was recruited by Joyce Gilbert, whose husband, Richard Gilbert, is a retired minister from a church in Rochester, New York. And they are now attending my church, which is First Universalist Church of Rochester, New York. And she is sort of the uncredited, like, Uber editor above me, mostly standing in as a surrogate, and she's also a proofreader. But I will say, just for those who know them, that Joyce and I call him Dick. That's what he prefers to be called, but a lot of people call him Reverend Gilbert. Some people call him Richard. She calls him Richard, but that's not what he refers to himself as. He's been in and out of the hospital quite a bit, and she's been taking care of him quite a bit. And she herself is not in the best of health. So I just approached her one day at coffee hour and just said, Joyce, please I hope you take this the right way, but it seems like we haven't had the Herald board hasn't met in a long time. And she used to call conference calls. And I said, would you mind if I took over your responsibilities in that area? And if you have any say, I will certainly listen to what you say. And because she has put in things like, said certain articles are not appropriate and stuff like that. So I respect that. I just want to take the burden off her shoulders. And she didn't say I couldn't. So she is also, this is just me, and please don't let it get back to her, but she's a little forgetful. And I respect that, but I do want to take the burden off her shoulder. And one of the things that really needed to happen was a reconstitution of the board, meaning new members. The older board gathered together about 3 times a year on a conference call And I can't even get anyone to answer me via email other than Vernon, and he's in German. The former editor speaks in 2-word sentences. That's not sufficient for an answer. And the names, I don't have the names on me, but suffice it to say, there's 2 people from the previous board. Both of them have been previous editors, so it's their right to be on the board of the Herald. I've got someone who is a photographer and amateur historian in California who's agreed to be, and his work has graced the cover of the Herald before. Reverend Michael Barnett, who's written multiple articles for the Herald, has agreed to be on the board. And I have one more person that a woman who I want to ask to be a board member. So anyway, that's happening as far as the board goes. Really, it's a pretty low-key type of thing. Just I would probably do Zoom meetings rather than conference calls because they're just easier to manage. But things need to move along, and I think we need some younger input and stuff like that, just because things move along. Okay, treasury-wise, I don't have a number for you, but I can say that the whole magazine is being run right now pretty much by me and the treasurer. Doug Shaheen, and he wanted to retire 10 years ago, but hasn't yet. But he's doing a fantastic job keeping up with membership, and I keep up with the publication itself. He says we're okay money-wise. We do get contributors to money. We do get contributors to the magazine now and then for money. We are going up just a couple of dollars on subscription costs. Joyce donated, I think it was either $500 or $700 to delay that increase in subscription costs, but not just, but I mean, basically mailing. Everything went up in COVID, as you might imagine, because of transportation fees for paper and all kind of stuff that magazine editors have to worry about. We do have email subscription services, which really helps for people overseas because sometimes they get things, sometimes they don't, depending on the particular country's mail system and ours, and the computer that assigns things at where we have it mailed. Interesting that you mentioned something about the Convocation Bank being in the South. Our charter stipulates that we have to use a Southern bank as well. So we do have a Southern bank that Doug uses. He's in Boston, but yeah, and he was a former, I think, CPA. So I mean, he understands all that kind of money stuff, whereas forget it, I don't. But things are going well. It's just I'm not getting as many articles as I'd like. And I ask people constantly to do it. So sometimes the issues are late because I'm scrambling to grab stuff from wherever I can. And there's a lot of data out there, but just because it's on the web, that doesn't guarantee that people read it. You know, so what I consider is like I'm turning over a leaf and discovering something under the leaves, you know, that I think needs to see the light of day. And once again, the magazines are archived at your school, Harvard Divinity School. That's that's a pretty cool thing. I'm in talks with Jay about some possibility for archiving. I have most, but not all of the issues literally dating back to 1855. So many are in hard copy, the 20th century issues. Prior to the 20th century, they're on microfilm, which I have all of those as well from a university in Mississippi that I got copies from. So we have a rich heritage. I'd love to be able to do archival searches, you know, and just find old issues and see what they talk about. I myself am getting more interested in the history of what I consider, first of all, I consider the magazine to be, because there's so much controversy in the denomination since the merger or the consolidation, as a graphic design teacher, which I am, Unitarian Universalism is our brand. And it needs to be our brand, but oftentimes when people talk about our denomination, they just say, I'm a Unitarian. They forget the last word, but it is officially part of our brand. What does that mean? And I would say that an awful lot of UUs, when they're confronted with the word universalist, all they think of is something about everybody is saved. And the whole idea of salvation, just that immediately turns them off. Immediately. And there's a lot of thought going back, even as early as now, I know, to the 18th century, that was talking about the here and now more than the afterlife. And there's key figures along the way, and some that we don't even talk about, but were probably influencing those key figures, people like Darwin and Nietzsche, and how religion was starting to become more science and less religion. As the goal. So. Excuse my ignorance, but how often does it come out? Oh, it's quarterly. And the UU World twice a year. Now, yes, that's correct. Any questions? Any comments?
Who can contribute an article?
Well, now, just about anybody with money. Oh, contribute, oh, me, article. Anyone can contribute an article. One of my proofreaders is more nitpicky than I am, and he was saying, well, you need to create some sort of standardization for the article. It's like, no, I'm an artist. I want everyone to have their voice. And in this issue, the author that spoke today, Kathy, I think's her name, she has her first chapter in the magazine. The previous board had voted to have a standardization for language in the magazine, like colorful words or objectionable words, and I stuck to that standard and published what she wrote as she wrote it, with minor points that for our standards. But yeah, I like having I like giving the author their voice.
Are you basically looking for material that thematizes universalism in all the different ways people might understand that? Or is it any material from people who resonate with the idea of universalism?
Well, actually, I don't know how to quantify that, so I'd say a little of both. I can tell you that one of my main guiding principles, this really stuck with me. The grandson of Clinton Lee Scott goes to our church, Michael L. Scott. And he told me when I took over as, or he mentioned when I took over as editor 11 years ago, it's a great magazine, but it seems a little bit, it's too much on the past. It needs to be more relevant. And so I've tried to bring it, I've tried to introduce current topics in articles, and I'm a provoker. I like to ask questions that are completely, there's no right answer to it, but my topics tend to be open-ended. Can God be offended? That was the last issue. There is no right answer to that, but some people think they're right, but, so yeah, I would say relevant to it. I will take, if you've got there was an article about a couple of paintings that were donated by Universalists of the church that I mentioned a while ago at the Cobblestone Museum. It's relevant. They were Universalists. They contributed to their local church. They were, moneyed people. There's been articles on history of baths, healing baths, and Southern Universalism stuff. A history of Universalism in Alabama was written by one of our subscribers, and yeah.
You used to have 500 subscribers. Do you still?
No, we have just enough subscribers to get the U.S. Postal Service a break in our shipping. I think you have to have at least 200. And in the past, like Vernon often gives Vernon Chandler is one of our longest serving and previous editors. He often gives money as gift subscriptions to people, and I have notices that you can do that, but hardly anyone does. I don't keep up with the subscriber list as much as our treasurer does. I just kind of trust that he will deal with that stuff. Who gets free issues, who gets complimentary issues, who gets, who's paid up when. I keep up to some extent, but it's more than I can deal with. It's just a part-time thing for me, But I'm emboldened to do it. I love doing what I'm doing. And it's also good for me professionally because as a teacher, people, even at the high school level, the BOCES level, they want you to be producing in your field so that you're kind of keeping up to date. And I have no problem with that being other stuff that I do and such. So anyway, I think it's a good publication. It's cheap. And the fact that it's paper means that it lays on the counter until you get around to it or whatever. But we also do email for those who have concerns about that. Unfortunately, because it's been a super, super heavy week for me,
I completely forgot all my back issues that I was going to bring, so pardon me for that. But I do have business cards in case you'd like to have them, which has the Herald's email address, which is one of my email addresses, and the mailing address for Doug, our treasurer, in case you would like to mail in a check. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, we were allowed to go a little further. Let's take about a 10-minute break, but the movie is about 53 minutes, and maybe we'll just come back at 3:50 to start the movie a little early and have a little more transition time. Pardon? The movie is right here, right? So if you want to take a bio break or get another snack downstairs, you can do that. And so about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll come back and we'll have an introduction to the documentary with the filmmaker and some other folks who are involved. And then we'll go right after the movie to the social hour time in Hale Lounge.